Three things you should consider when buying a house at Atascadero. Number one, whether or not your city street is maintained by the city or not. Number two, whether or not your house is on a septic or sewer. And number three, what the traffic patterns look like around the neighborhood that you're buying and why that should matter. All right, I'm often surprised that people don't understand these things when they're looking to buy a house in Atascadero, or they have already purchased a house in Atascadero and their realtor did not shed light on these issues. The three things really important in Atascadero is your city street, your septic sewer, and then your traffic patterns. Traffic patterns are a little bit less than the other two, but we're going to dive into these. Number one, city streets. There's roughly 15 to 20% of city streets in Atascadero are not maintained by the city. And that's a big deal because some of those streets are in pretty bad disrepair. There's a few streets that come to mind in general that are full of potholes. The asphalt's basically turned to gravel in some spots, and they're not maintained by the city. So they're not going to be repaved unless they get adopted sometime down the road, or if residents pool their money together and have them repaved. Now, the city colony was founded in 1917. A lot of streets, E.G. Lewis did a great job of mapping out all the future streets in Atascadero. But by the time the colony went bankrupt in 1924, they hadn't built all those streets. So as people started building houses after 1924, the county had taken over control of public works, roads, what have you. And then, so the county only maintained the roads that were already existing or already had been in the works. So in 1924, when the county took over, from then until when the city was founded in the late 70s, those roads that had been built between then didn't get adopted into the city's maintenance plan once it was created. So all those roads that weren't maintained by the county when the city was founded, the city did not take over those roads as well. So when the city was created, it was a pretty very lean budget, didn't have a lot of money, and so it wasn't able to adopt all the streets, even the existing ones. So what you have now is you have about 15 to 20% of the roads in city limits that are not maintained by the city. What does that mean for your property value? Well, it does slightly decrease your property value if the road is really run down and there's no predicting when it'll ever get repaved. You might live on a street with very few neighbors, not a very long one. Maybe your neighbors will pool together and get the road redone, or maybe even just a section of the road. So that's always something that can be considered. There's no doubt that a brand new paved road, or a road that's paved every handful of years, is going to have a lot better curb appeal than a road that's more worn out. So just something to consider when you're looking to buy a house in Atascadero is ask your realtor if that road is maintained by the city. There's a pretty good chance that it is in most regard, because 80% of roads in Atascadero are maintained, but there are a lot, and it does come up. And I have people that have approached me asking why their road is not being repaved, and that is the reason. So it's unfortunate if you bought it and you didn't know it when you bought the house, but that is the reality. So when you're looking to buy in Atascadero, make sure you double check that with your realtor. Number two is if your house is on septic or sewer. There's lots of topography in Atascadero, lots of hills, lots of undulating hills. Some lift stations for sewer can't pull sewer from some areas up and over maybe a couple series of hills. So there's a lot of neighborhoods that have a mix of septic and homes that are on sewer. You might have streets that were built or the sewer was put in the road after the houses had been built with septic. And until the septic fails inspection, they don't have to hook up to sewer. So you have some houses that have septic, but they're on a road that has a sewer main down the middle of the road. That can be advantageous if you don't have the sewer surcharge on your bill. But if it comes down to the point where you're buying a house and the septic system is failing, you may have to pony up and attach to the city sewer, which can run about $20,000. That's roughly the cost of a city water meter, somewhere in the realm of $20,000, give or take. Also, if you're on a septic, you don't necessarily have to. It doesn't necessarily mean that a sewer is in your road. Say, for instance, on Dolores Avenue, You have sewer going up about 2 blocks from traffic way, and then after that, it's septic for about a block or two, and then it goes back into sewer. So there's no rhyme or reason exactly when where predictably the sewer is going to be, but it has a lot to do with topography and when the houses were built in relation to when the sewer was put in that area. So things to note: when you're buying a house with a septic tank, it could be totally fine, healthy leach field, healthy tank, ready to go. Pump it every 5 to 6 years if you're 2 people, maybe every 3 years if you're a family. But you may run into where a homeowner has to have it fixed, or they might sell it as is. And so you might have to get some septic repairs. Maybe there's a concrete tank, but it had redwood lids, and the wood lids, subterranean lids, have rotted out. That could cost a few $1,000s. If you're selling your house in Atascadero, you might want to, and you have septic, you'll definitely want to get that pumped out and inspected. So most likely, if you're buying, you're going to have that already in hand, a septic inspection report. Sometimes if it's really cost prohibitive, the seller, if they don't have the cash, might not do the work to fix a faulty leach field or fix a tank lid or change out a tank. So that could be an extra $10,000 to $20,000 if you need a whole new tank system on a 1,500 square foot house. Another thing to note is when you're doing a septic, when you're buying a house with a septic tank and there's no sewer hookups in the street, and you have the idea of wanting to do an ADU in the future, in Atascadero, a property on septic has to be over an acre for that to be possible as of this recording, but you're going to want to make sure that either you dig a new septic tank and new leach field for the ADU, or you have a large enough tank that it can withstand another 1,000 square foot, 1,200 square foot ADU or less. So just consider that when you're buying a house on septic. If you have future plans of building an ADU, go through all the scenarios with your realtor and meet with go to city building planning and ask them what the requirements are. A lot of the times Google search can give you the answers as well. All right, so septic to sewer. Number 3 that you want to worry about, I wouldn't say worry. This is probably the least of the 3 that you want to really consider. But there's a handful of schools in Atascadero, and schools operate, the kids drop off, pick up between 7:45, 8:15. They'll be highly impacted. A lot of our roads around the schools are 2 lanes. A lot of the bridges going across the highway, like say for instance from Santa Rosa, are 2 lanes. So if school's getting in and out and people are going to work at 8 a.m., you're not going to want to drive around that area. If you live around the high school, same thing. And then around 3 o'clock, a lot of traffic impacted downtown as well around the middle school, especially around the 8 o'clock hour and the 3 o'clock hour. Why does that matter to you? Well, if you don't have children and you also have to do a normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 job, you want to consider where you're living in terms of traffic patterns and school traffic. And, maybe you're looking at houses down on like San Andreas or Santa Ynez or Navajo or somewhere down Atascadero Avenue. Even middle of the day, the school campus is open for lunch. And so kids are going somewhere during lunch, they're driving. So the traffic during the middle of the day is also impacted. So the elementary school is probably not so much, but if you're living around the middle school or the high school in the downtown corridor, just be aware of the traffic patterns. I always tell people if you're buying somewhere that you're not familiar with, like if you're moving to Atascadero from another local town or you're coming from out of the area, and we have our buyers, I always recommend, hey, you're really interested in this house. If you have time before you leave, or if you have time the next few days during a normal school commute time, just check out the neighborhood, maybe just get some coffee, go park there and see the traffic pattern of what's going on. And just to get a better feel of how it is on a regular work day, regular school day. And it's just something to consider. And this can be applied to any neighborhood you buy anywhere in the world, is to consider the traffic patterns, because most of the time we're showing our clients houses in the evening or on the weekends, which is not going to have anywhere near the same traffic pattern in pedestrian traffic as you will see during work rush hour or school rush hour. So anyways, just 3 things you should consider when you're looking to buy a house in Atascadero. Number 1, whether or not the city street is maintained by the city or not. Number 2, if you're on septic or sewer and what that could mean for you as a buyer. And number 3, what's the traffic condition around where you're buying? And make sure you check it out on weekdays so you can see what that's like. So anyway, hope this video is helpful. We'll talk to you soon, and I hope you have a stellar day.